So packed everything only to leave it. I mean, we were there for a night and it's an hour away. So I'm like, all right, whatever. But I packed everything only to leave my bag on the bed. Uh,
Perfect.
yeah. So it was whatever. Weather was nice. I didn't really need change of clothes or anything. We came back earlier this morning, probably like 10 a.m. But I had my CPAP in there, and so I just didn't. I was waking up all throughout the night.
You did this last night?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So we left my son had a soccer game at noon yesterday. We got home at 1. They already had everything packed. So I packed all my stuff, which was really just like pair of sweats, because the weather's been pretty decent.
Mhm.
Um, threw my CPAP in there, some slippers, just whatever. We're just going to hang out, and then took off, got up there. I'm like, I didn't bring my backpack. So, but I
Dude,
brought the food. I brought the most important part though. I brought the food and my grill. So
oh yeah, yeah, you can't miss that. Dude, I can't sleep without my CPAP.
yeah.
There's like
I,
I can't sleep more than 20 minutes without it.
I was gonna say, I think I woke up probably 8 to 10 times. Went to bed around 11:30. Actually woke up about 7. So I think I woke up probably that I remember about every 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. You'll hear yourself like either gasping for air or
Yep.
yeah, exactly. Yep, yep. Like a fish out of water.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
So
like
how's your weekend
but
been?
oh, it was good. Yesterday was busy. Um I had Dave and
Yeah.
the Utah show.
Let me pull that up really quick because I
Mhm.
actually just had that up. I saw that they did pretty well. So let me get that pulled up here and do a little screen share. We could talk about that. Uh,
Yeah, he ended up getting, I think, fourth in the Masters, but dude, the Open class was ridiculous. These guys were so massive. It was just,
yeah, so one of the guys that I competed with, Brock Jenkins, I think, or
oh yeah,
Jenks.
he won it,
Yeah,
right?
he got second, but he was holding dead center. Oh my, I'm a zoo today. I'm like clicking everything but the share screen button. Uh, um, really good guy. Yeah, he ended up getting second. I thought he was going to take first, but that was not the case. Google Chrome. Gosh, I can't figure it out today. Bear with us, people. Here we go. All right. So Fit Freak Dave. Oh, that's the prejudging updates. Was it in his stories?
Yeah, I think they posted something today.
Oh, well, there's
Um, that's Melissa, that's his
okay.
wife.
And
She
she
ended
took
up she took first in, I believe, the Masters and
Masters
second in overall,
second,
I think. I don't
second
I
and
don't
open,
I
I
don't
think.
coach her. I'm
Gotcha.
just a friend of hers, um but yeah, obviously I'm rooting for her too.
Hmm. And this is Dave.
Yep. Yeah,
Now,
so
did
he's
he just do classic in this? Because I know
yeah.
sometimes he'll do okay. I know sometimes
Yeah,
he'll do men's physique as well.
this one was just classic, and then we got a show in 3 weeks where we'll be doing men's physique.
Okay.
Um I think he's going to place higher in the men's physique. Um it's not that he's not a good classic guy. It's just that the competition is ridiculous, dude. I
Yeah.
mean, they're pros after all, so it's not you can't make light of that, but
Yeah.
you for whatever reason you forget.
Hmm.
And then you see the guys and it's like, "Oh yeah, those are pros. I remember now."
Yeah.
But yeah, super proud of him. Uh
Very true.
the um the condition that we came in with, um I'd say it's one of his best he's ever put on stage. Um,
Sweet.
so we can't lose there.
Yeah.
Um, it ended up being a size game. We just lost on overall size, and um, man, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game sometimes. Bodybuilding, after all, right?
Yep.
Um, our conditioning was on par with everyone on that stage.
That's
Uh,
good.
if not better than a few of them, but
Hmm.
you and I both know it's not just a conditioning game. Um, but I rather would have brought him in, you know, crispy like we did, as opposed to trying to fill him out. And, then now he's not, he hasn't yet nailed condition, and he hasn't nailed the size and fullness either. So it's like you kind of lost both. We
That's
might as well play our cards to our favor.
Yep. That's a perfect segue into the run-in for the show.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and kick us in because our today's topic is going to touch on peak week. So we'll talk a lot about
Yeah.
strategy. We'll talk about what you guys did specifically, what we've done in the past, and we'll kind of kick things off with that. So welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bar. I am your host, Devon Grogans, here with co-host none other than the Tommy John. Today we got a great episode for you. We're going to be covering some Q&As along with peak week preparation. So shows are now in full effect. I had somebody compete a couple of weeks ago. Tommy just had somebody, as you guys saw, compete just this last weekend yesterday. And so we're going to talk about expectations, not only from a coach's standpoint, from an athlete standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint, what to expect when leading into peak week. So I know a lot of times people think that peak week has this magic perception behind it where we're making all these adjustments and turning all these dials, when the fact of the matter is if you're not ready by peak week, you're probably
Mhm,
not ready.
mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about what you guys did going into peak week for Dave. I know you said that you guys still have not um, yet reached the full potential. So what does peak week for you, or what did peak week for you guys last week look like going into the show?
Yeah, so, starting 2, 3 weeks out, we start doing daily check-ins.
Yep.
I
I'm the
wanna
same.
know I wanna know morning weight and pictures, and I wanna know PM weight and pictures. Sometimes I'll have guys send me post-workout photos, just to see what they're looking like with the pump and everything like that. Um, and really what you're doing is trying to find the best look to weight ratio, and just trying to get an idea of where his best look is, because this by this point, Devin, if you're not fat free by 2 3 weeks out,
Yep.
you're done. You're
Yeah.
done. All you're gonna do, if you try to get the fat off in those last 2 3 weeks, maybe let's talk. Okay, maybe a quarter of a percentage you can peel off. But if you're trying to get a significant amount of fat off in those last 2 3 weeks, you're just going to run a guy or girl into the ground,
Yep.
and they're going to show up completely stressed, barely be able to walk on that stage, yet
Mhm.
alone perform and pose. Um, because posing is hard. It takes
Oh,
a lot of
yes.
energy. So if someone's dead on that stage because you guys weren't ready early enough, the look, not only is the posing going to be poor, and the energy and everything like that, but the look is going to follow it. You're just going to look tired,
Yep.
strung out. Just the body just looks tired.
I was going to say, and for those that don't know what a tired, strung out body looks like, it looks like somebody that has gone very, very, very flat that you cannot fill back out. It looks
Hmm.
like they have lost a lot of their muscle, a lot of size. Um, I actually have, I'll show you real quick before we jump into what you guys did,
Yeah, you're good.
because people don't realize the amount of stress and what it will do to the body. So when I competed last year, the show that I did for my qualifying show to be able to go to nationals was one that I had done several years prior. And that was a show, I think I've talked about it before, where everything that could have went wrong, both in my personal life and in the prep, absolutely did. I
Hmm.
changed jobs. I was broke. For all intents and purposes, I should have pulled out of prep. But me being me, I'm like, no, we're going to push through. And all it did, especially with the coach that I had at the time, this was not with Skip, we were just running me into the ground. I was doing
Hmm.
three 45-minute sessions a day leading into that. this is actually what kind of kickstarted me looking into, like I talked about on the last show, looking into what skip loading was,
Hmm.
because I had one refeed. I was ran so far into the ground that I remember telling my friend, I said, I am going to eat to the point where I feel like I'm going to throw up. And I
Hmm.
did that and I felt miserable and I lost 5 pounds the next day. And I
Hmm.
remember telling my coach, like, dude, I lost 5 pounds and I ate an ungodly amount of food. And he said, okay, we're 3 weeks out. I'm like, I don't think you hear me. And when we finally started trying to fill me out for the show, it was beyond too late.
Hmm.
Um, I cannot find this photo for the life of me, but when I do, I will show you guys. And it was oh, I think I might have found it. It was a night and day different. Here it is right here. So this is the difference. And obviously there's substantial amount of muscle that was built between it, but you can see just from the photo on the left-hand side how tired my body is.
Oh yeah, wow.
Like zero definition in my
Hmm.
abs.
Hmm.
Nothing looks full. It literally looks like I'm a Somali pirate that was starved to death.
and,
And
and
for the most
would
for the
you
most part I
argue
was.
would you argue that the guy on the right wasn't possible without the guy on the left though?
Absolutely. This prep
Yeah.
taught me so much about what
Yeah.
not to do, not only
Hmm.
with clients,
Hmm.
with my body, leading into a show, knowing when enough is enough. Like I absolutely am thankful that that happened to me. And I remember
Yeah.
the morning of the show looking in the mirror and thinking to myself, why am I even doing this?
Hmm.
And then just remember telling myself, I've already come this far. It's time to finish. But
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
is just,
I think everyone needs to go through one of those where you do just run yourself into the ground. Maybe not everyone, but I mean, like, especially, that first prep is just so hard. And, if you're a newer guy and you don't have a lot of muscle mass, and um, trying to get into shape is really, really hard. And um, I think at least once, running yourself into the ground teaches you a whole bunch, right?
oh yeah.
There's a lot to be learned there.
So long, anyway, a long deviation just to come back to
Hmm.
say stress is very important. And again, if you're not ready within about the 3 to 4 week mark, there's really not much left you can do other than, like you said, that small percentage of maybe changing that last little bit. But let's go back to what you guys were focusing on leading into this prep for peak week.
Yeah, so we had him ready nice and early. Dave never gets really fat or out of shape or anything like that. So
Mhm.
um, we were in a good spot the entire prep, really. Um, so let's say 2 weeks out, we had just like some water and stuff to clean up. So we got rid of that, pulled back cardio a bit. He was actually dealing with some injuries and stuff. So we actually had to pull back cardio anyways. He was dealing with the hip thing, the shoulder thing. So it kind of worked out. That timing ended up working out because we ended up pulling back the cardio anyways. But so the 1 week out mark, this is where I'm starting to slowly actually dry him out.
Hmm.
So I'm starting to put that process into play. And his show is on a Saturday, so Thursday I really, really started drying him out, and um, essentially we used coffee,
Hmm.
little bit of vodka, and a tiny, tiny bit of diuretic. And the goal of that was to get him dry for Friday, almost like a pre mock show.
Hmm.
And then I started getting pictures, weights, overall feel after every single meal on Friday.
Hmm.
So what I would do is feed him, write it down, right? Write down the exact meal that I gave him, watch an hour and a half later to see where his weight went up to, compare it to the look, give him another meal, adjust the meal accordingly if I need to. Hour and a half later, he's sending me pictures. Wait again. We're going to look at that look. Now I go back, write that meal down. Next time, feed him again. Look at the look. We did this all day long.
Hmm.
So now, Devin, I can go back through our thread, and I can say, okay, where's my favorite look,
Yep.
right? What weight did he wake up at? Where did we take him? Where does he look the best? And then the next day, all I have to do is replicate it. That's it.
Perfect.
That's
Yep.
all I had to do. The next day, I did all the work the day before,
Hmm.
so then I know what to expect the next day. And literally to the pound, I had him exactly where I wanted him, and I
Perfect.
held him there all day long.
Yep.
And you do that through manipulation of giving a little amount of fluid, not giving a little amount of fluid, giving the same meals or slightly reduced meals as the day before. Like I said, I wrote my playbook the day before.
Hmm.
So it wasn't a matter of wake up, um, Saturday, Friday, Saturday morning, wake up Saturday morning and be like, okay, what am I going to feed him? Because he weighs this and I want him here. Well, no, I know what I'm going to feed him because I
Yep.
know what I fed him yesterday and I know what his body did. And like, I'm telling you, within the 10th of the pound, I had him exactly where I wanted him. And that was all calculated the day before.
Yep.
Um, so there was no guesswork on Saturday. He knew exactly what foods to have with him. He knew, um, whatever type of gear and stuff we were using. He knew what to have with him at the show. Like everything was dialed
Mhm.
to the exact milligram, exact gram. Everything was nailed in. And that all happened the day before. So
Nice.
it was stress free for both of us on the day of, right?
That's the
Um,
way it should be.
mhm,
Having a good understanding of what the plan is, rolling into the show, what you'll be eating that day, what you'll be eating or drinking before getting on stage. All of those variables should be pretty well laid out
mhm,
prior to the day of. Uh, there will, I mean, and again, with everybody, because I'm sure we'll get some comments where, somebody will say something. There are obviously outliers. I know when I was prepping for, that's exactly how, very similar to how it was when I was doing the qualifying show. When we
mhm,
did nationals, it was a little bit different. We did do a mock prep because I had about 2.5 months, 2 months in between. So we did a bit of aside from testing with that first show, we did some other testing with the body, kind of like a mock peak week. But the
mhm,
day of and the night before, we still had a plan. It's either going to be this or this, depending on the look.
mhm,
So sometimes there are those variables. I ended up that day because we were trying to hold a specific look that kept me very lean with just enough fullness that I wasn't running flat. I think I ended up eating one cream of rice meal about 7 a.m. And
yeah.
then it was literally like a
Sips of
rice
water.
cake. Yeah, sips of
Yeah.
water and a
Yeah.
rice cake with peanut butter if you feel like you are going to absolutely gnaw your arm off. And I
Yeah.
think I had two between 7 a.m. and I went on stage at noon. So that was about it for me for that day leading up to prejudging, but that was the look that we needed to hold, and it worked
Mhm.
out perfect.
Yeah.
So obviously there's, you might have some variables and some changes, but doing
Yeah.
what
And
you're talking about doing, where you're
mhm,
you're having an understanding of how the body is working based off of the water, based off the sodium, the carbohydrate manipulation, and then understanding that this specific prescription creates this specific weight and
mhm.
look is the best thing you can do is knowing those metrics.
Man, I owe a lot of credit to AJ for showing me a lot of this stuff. Just recently, we've been talking a lot about it. So a lot of it came from things he's been showing me over the last month or so, um, and and that's what it ends up being is find the look and weight early, right,
Hmm.
and try to replicate that with manipulation to fullness and keeping them dry, everything like that. Um, and we could argue that AJ may be one of the best prep coaches as far as bringing that undeniable condition every single
Oh,
time.
absolutely. Yeah.
Every single time. You can look at any of his guys and almost guess who prepped him, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I learned a lot of that from him. John Jewett talks about it a lot. He does all of his own preps, and he does that because he's just so detail oriented.
Yeah. Very
And
meticulous.
yeah, and that's what makes the peak week easier. So, um, we're talking about peak week here. The best way to make the peak week go as smooth as possible is just have all the data
Yep.
from the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. And, Dave is a guy that I've prepped for 3 or 4 shows now. I've worked with him for over a year. Um, so his body isn't new to me. It's
Hmm.
something that um, I have a pretty good understanding of how it's going to respond. I mean, every prep is different, but for the most part, um, I even know his personality. I know if he's stressing or not stressing. I can
Hmm.
tell by the way he's communicating, or I can see it in his posing when he sends me posing videos. And um, I can pick up on all these cues because it's not our first rodeo together and it won't be our last. And because he trusts me and, we've built good rapport and we're really learning how each other works. And um, that's what makes a good, coaching client relationship last is when you're really, really learning about the client,
Yep.
because anyone can send you a diet and be like, yeah, do X, Y, and Z. And um, they just give you a cookie cutter plan that they use for everyone else. And sometimes it nails, right? Sometimes they kill it. And there's coaches out there, we could name them. And it's like some of their guys are just like lights out, killed it. Then the next guy, it's like, man, did you guys even prep? Like,
Yeah.
what happened over the last 4 weeks, um, but yeah, that's the difference between a cookie cutter coach and someone who is so meticulous and detailed, and that is what makes the successful peak week is those coaches that are tracking everything,
Hmm.
um, down to the milligram and down to the gram of food and everything,
Yep. Let's
stress
talk.
levels, appetite, all that.
Absolutely. Speaking of appetite, let's talk carbohydrate and protein manipulation. And I
Hmm.
say that only because oftentimes, I know with a lot of my clients, we're heading into peak week, carbs are low, protein has usually been pushed up a little bit. I know that for many of them, and again, case by case situation with everything, but for the most part, I will typically start lowering protein and
Hmm.
increasing carbohydrates as we get closer to the show in peak week, so long as we're not spilling over. Because carbohydrates are protein sparing, so
Hmm.
you're not necessarily going to lose muscle mass at that point because it's going to be taken on in kind of a different way that it would if you had both protein and carbohydrates high. But then B, it's also helping with um, refilling the muscle glycogen, obviously filling out the competitor. And then
Hmm.
there's also a mental aspect to it as well, of just having those carbs and being able to have your brain function a little bit better.
Hmm.
Is that something that you do as well, or do you
Yeah.
typically just keep the carbs low until the last couple of days and then start pushing? what's
Mm-mm.
your what's your protocol look like in that aspect?
It's different for everyone, but it's not
Sure.
that different. Um, like I will start lowering guys and girls protein as far as 4 to 6 weeks out.
Okay.
Um, because all it's doing at that point is really, and I'm not saying I cut protein in half like that far
Sure.
out. But yeah, I will start pulling, 5 grams for meals here and there,
Hmm.
because I think it can impact digestion at that point.
Yep.
I don't think it's changing a whole lot for the look. You're certainly not building any muscle at that point, and it's really just becoming something that's just taking up room in your stomach.
Hmm.
And um, I am more focused on carbohydrates and fat here and there as needed.
Sure.
Natural competitors are a little different. The fat's a bit more important for certain things. And the muscle holds some triglycerides. So there is some fullness aspect that can happen from, intracellular triglycerides from fat, but it doesn't touch what a carbohydrate and sodium and potassium will do to a muscle, right?
Right.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, for example, let's use Dave to starting Thursday, his meals were 20 grams of protein.
Hmm.
And,
Now, is this Thursday before the show? So 2 days
mhm,
out? Okay.
mhm. And Dave's a 200-pound guy on stage, shredded.
Hmm.
So yeah, he was eating 120 grams of protein a day at most, right? Um, and then, you know, 4 weeks out, he was probably at, I think it was 40 grams of protein. I would have to double check, but yeah, something like that. But yeah,
Okay.
like 2 days out, I cut the protein in half. I probably could have even taken it lower. And the day of the show, we had like a little bit, but there were a
Yeah.
few meals that had no protein at all. It's
And
like,
at that point, it's basically just for satiety, just so the
yeah,
carbs aren't
and
running
and and
straight through.
I don't care if you're hungry
Yep.
personally. I
Exactly.
love you, dude, but like I just don't care.
Yep.
It's not about that. You can eat after the show with your wife. You guys can go out to dinner. I hope you do. It's gonna be great. But like right now, I don't care if you're hungry. I'm sorry, but I just want you to look your best. And I don't think let's take a guy that's hungry and a guy that's not. They're not going to look any different on
Yeah.
stage. They may
Yeah.
feel a little more angry than the one that's not as hungry, but at the end of the day, they're not going to look different at stage. But the guy that has protein trying to digest, that could cause some distension. It could
And
cause,
that's what I
you
always
know,
thought that was funny when I would be backstage and I would see people eating full like chicken and rice or
I don't
turkey and
know,
rice
dude.
meals. I'm like, where are you thinking that that's going?
It doesn't
Like
even sound good.
you're on stage in like 30 minutes and you're eating like a regular meal of like turkey, rice, and asparagus. Like,
You know who else I learned this from, Devon, is I heard Austin Stout talk about it a lot, and he's like those first, specifically that those last hours leading up to like the show where you're actually on stage. He's like, what the hell is protein gonna do? And really, he's on the side of like carbohydrates might not even do too much at
yeah,
that point. It's all electrolyte and fluid
fluid.
manipulation.
Exactly. Like
Yeah,
if you're not even beginning the digestion process to
you're
the
still
point where it's
digesting
going
the
to
shit
make
from
it.
last night.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
And like,
Um,
man, you can give someone 6 ounces of water and like a little bit of salt, and all of a sudden they're vascular and
oh yeah.
filling out. And it's like, yeah, I didn't even have to give you food.
Hmm. And I think that's a big part. I think too many people, and I'm glad to see that we're really as a whole getting away from the trend of like zero water, which used to be a big thing, is completely pulling it out now to leaving it in, and then manipulating more of the sodium electrolyte balance along with water rather than just pulling it out and trying to do it
Hmm.
all with carbs and proteins.
Yeah, I won't get exactly specific on what I did with Dave because it's kind of a secret, but
Sure.
I can tell you off record. But um, essentially, he had pretty much his normal water intake on Thursday. Friday was probably a bit lower than his normal water intake. Um, and then Saturday, there wasn't a ton of water,
I do I do
just
a
as
very
needed.
I do a very similar thing. Thursday we
Hmm.
pretty much keep it normal. Friday we start to pull back until the evening, and then usually Friday evening through the day of the show it's just sips as needed or with food.
Yeah, and literally Thursday and Friday, I'm a meal to meal guy.
Yeah.
So I'm getting photos, video, weight after every single meal, and I'm prescribing fluid with the meal. So it's not even like, yeah, just drink your normal water today. No, it's like I will tell you how much
Yep.
water to drink in between the
Hmm.
next two meals. So that's kind of the route we took this time. And for his last show or last two shows, it would more so be like, okay, Thursday night we're cutting off water at 4 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was wrong for doing it that way. That doesn't mean he didn't come in great shape, because he did, but I did it differently this time around, and it worked out really well in my opinion. Maybe Dave would argue that it didn't, but in my opinion, he said he thought he looked good, so he was happy with everything.
Good. Let's talk. Let's talk beyond the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And what to expect, what to prepare for, things to kind of line up heading into your peak week from a personal standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
At
Yeah.
this point, your brain fog is, probably high. Um, you're running on fumes. It hurts to sit. It hurts to stand. For some of us, taking a week off from work is not an option. For
Mm-hmm.
you and I, taking a week off from the family is not an option.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things that you do leading into peak week when it comes to both work and personal life that you've seen some good benefits in, that you could probably share some tips with people?
Mm-hmm. I am a guy that takes off work.
Which, if you
Uh,
can, that's great. So I too, I will usually take the last 2 to 3 days off.
mhm. See,
But
like a guy like John Meadows, like he never took off work. you know,
mm,
he would work until Friday. Let's say for a Saturday show, he would always tell this story. He would work until Friday. He worked for Chase Corporate for a long time, and then after his work day on Friday, he would go do his check-ins and tan. Saturday morning's a show. So like there are guys like that that can successfully do it. John's he was a really calm guy, very um, just not a lot of anxiety. It didn't seem like, at least, maybe mentally it was different for him, but he portrayed himself as someone who's just calm and always just went with the flow. But I'm not a guy like that. Um, I need to take myself out of work. So
mhm,
normally I'll work Monday, Tuesday, and I take the rest of the week off. And that's excessive. I know most people don't have to do that. Um, like my other competitor, same name, Dave, um, he does roller coaster maintenance. And
oh
like
wow.
this dude's literally climbing roller coasters like 1 week out. I'm just like, man, you're a different guy. You're a different type of species. I'm trying to walk down someone's basement stairs to their furnace, and like my legs are quivering, and Dave's climbing roller coasters. So everyone's a little different. But for me personally, I take off um, you know, Wednesday through Sunday. And um, I spend a lot of the time on the couch if it's prescribed. If I still need to do cardio, I do cardio. But normally at that point, cardio's done. I spend a lot of time on the couch with my feet up. I watch funny movies. I relax. I don't allow any type of stress. I don't argue with anyone over text message. I barely respond to anyone on their text messages, right? I'm just chilling, watching funny shit on Netflix or whatever, just things that make me feel good. Only time I'm moving is to go make my next meal. And then after that meal, I'll go pose, take pictures, send them in, and then I'll go back to the couch unless otherwise prescribed, right? And
Mhm.
that's literally from Wednesday to the show. And um, it's excessive, and not everyone's going to be able to do that. Um, but I guess your overall question was for everyone, like, what's the main goal? And the goal is just to keep stress as low as possible.
Yep.
Keep your relationships as healthy as possible. I know that if I just don't respond to text messages, I can simply just say I was busy or I wasn't responding, right? And that's
Hmm.
not going to cause any sort of conflict. But let's say someone sends you a text message and for whatever reason, argument comes up or a debate of some kind, and now your blood starts boiling. You guys are debating about, whether to eat nacho cheese or Cool Ranch Doritos or something, and you're all upset about it. Now you just fucked up your look for show day potentially, right? Over Doritos. But no, I just literally my goal is to keep stress zero. literally as close to zero as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm a high strung dude, like 24/7. I always have something to do. Something always needs to get done, no matter what. And when a show's coming up, I have to be the opposite, and it's hard for me. And the only way to do that is to shut everything off. Um, but like I said, realistically, the the main point of that for other people who can't realistically do that is just whatever keeping stress low for you is, do that, right?
Yep. And
Um,
this is important. This is where
mhm,
conversations come into play because for me, I was very similar to like John in the sense where I would work usually a half day on Friday
mhm,
and then I would pack up and head out. Now, as I got a little bit more progressive and started doing better, shows became bigger, more important, I should say.
mhm.
Then I started taking, Friday off. The funny thing is, my boss would actually tell me, A, you have the vacation time. B, why are you at work? And so I was like, all right. So I started taking Thursday, Fridays off leading up to the shows, especially if I was traveling.
Mhm.
But I feel like this is really where conversations come in, at least with those that are close to you, where it's, hey,
Mhm.
I'm in peak week. I'm probably going to be a little bit of a recluse this week. If I don't get back to you immediately, just understand that I will after the show. This is just
Yeah.
that one point where I have to kind of internally take everything. And again, that's not for everybody. Like you said, there's people and clients where they're doing the same thing they're doing every day. And then they go, do check ins and come back and they're still doing stuff and roll up to but that's low stress for them. So if
Yeah,
that's low
and,
stress,
like,
yeah,
if you met my buddy Dave that I was just talking about, if you met the dude, he's like he's just so chill. He says so
yeah,
much gratitude every day. He's just so grateful for everything he has. He's grateful for me as a coach and a friend. He's just so kind, and, you can tell that the dude is just,
yes,
like, he's fine. He's gonna go
yeah.
climb a roller coaster. Next day, he's gonna go pose on stage. Like,
I had
if you
yep.
talk to him, you would just know that, you
I had
know?
a client that was very similar. He literally, it was a local and local to the point where like it's 10 minutes from the house local.
Mhm,
And I had a guy where I'm messaging him. I'm like, hey, I'm here at the check-ins. Where are you? I wanted to get a look at you. He's like, oh, I just got off work. And it's like 5:15 or something. He gets there and I was like, all right, I check him out. He checks in, everything's good. I'm like, good, man, you're looking solid. Do this, this, and this we're good to go. He's like, okay, well, I got to go run a couple errands and then I got to do this. And then I'm like, I would prefer you don't. Uh, but same thing. Like I could tell, like it was another part of his day. It
it's
was
so
just,
fun,
yep,
and maybe they're doing it right, you know, I don't know, but, like, you asked, like, "What are my tips for peak
yeah,
week?" And m in my mind, for me, it's just to shut off everything, literally become a hermit, while maintaining healthy relationships. Like you
sure.
said, that prep work, it goes weeks in advance. Don't tell work, the week before that, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to take all of
Yeah,
next week off. No, like my boss already knows when my show is, and
yep.
it's not until November. And the other thing I did, obviously I do heating and air, so I try to strategically place my shows.
Hmm.
Like the beginning of November, yeah, we're starting to do furnace tune-ups and stuff in the Midwest, um, but we're not running into a lot of emergency calls and stuff like that yet. So I try to strategically place my shows so it's not going to be an issue. So that would be my other suggestion for people is when you go to choose a show, look at your work schedule a year in advance. And of course things will shift. But hey, Devon, we need you to travel to Amsterdam for 2 weeks in the month of April. Well, don't pick a show in May,
Hmm.
because that's probably not good. Um, so just being strategic on when you're choosing your bodybuilding shows could save you a lot of stress. Um, the biggest thing that you touched on that I couldn't agree more with is just preparing everyone around you for what's to come. And that shouldn't come off as like, threatening and things like that. But just like, hey, this is when I'm doing the show. Expect these things at this time and, everything like that. Have all your travel in line if you need to travel. Um, all the things that could cause unwanted stress, just have all those straightened out,
Yep.
have all your supplements on hand for your
Yeah.
show. Have all those things, so you're not looking at your toolbox and like, oh, I'm running out of this and no one has it and blah blah blah. Like, man, all those things are squared away for me before I even start prep. And it circles back to the same thing: keeping that stress low and trying to limit as many surprises that are going to come up that you can, because there will be surprises.
Yep.
So if you can control the ones that you can control, then that will limit them at least. Have your trunks ready, make sure they fit. Just
Yes.
like silly stuff like that
Have a
you should.
backup pair.
Sure, have your song uploaded on
Yep.
the NPC website, all that silly stuff like that you don't want to stress about when the show gets closer.
Perfect. I think that covers a lot of it. Really just, it was just kind of to piggyback off of what we touched on the last episode. What to expect when it comes to getting ready for a show alongside with the cost of competing previously. So I just
Mhm.
think peak week was kind of a good follow-up to go with that. Any last thoughts on that before we dive into the Q&A?
Yeah, and this one's really quick, but it's
Sure.
extremely important. And you and I were probably going to forget it because we just laugh about it. But, you know, there's no magic that happens in peak week. There's nothing magical about peak week. There's no special crazy protocol. There's things you can do that help, but um, if if you couldn't confidently pull some water and step on stage 2 weeks before the actual show day, you're not going to be ready.
Yeah.
And I had to just give someone recently very, very hard truth about that because they were 12 weeks out. Their blood work looked atrocious, like to the point where it's dangerous. And I said,
Oh,
you cannot do this show. I'm not comfortable with you doing this show. We need to pull out of it. We need to pick a different show. And of course, at first, they were a little upset about it because that's a hard thing to hear from your coach. But their body was not responding. The blood work was literally going to a terrible spot, a dangerous spot. And I said, we
hmm.
can't do this show. And now they agreed to it, and they're happy that they did because now we have more time.
Yep.
And I'm not killing anyone, literally, or just figuratively, to put them on stage for a bodybuilding show. It's so silly.
Yep.
But if I'm going to put you on stage, you're going to look good and you're going to do it in the healthiest way possible. So yeah, nothing magical happens in peak week. Everything needs to be squared away early. Be aggressive in the beginning of prep when you still have energy, and then towards the end of prep, when you're getting ready to get on stage, you should be able to start tapering off some things. Cardio, you should be able to add some food back in. Sleep should be improving. Your relationship should start to be improving, your mood and everything like that. Like, don't run yourself to the ground and then expect to get on stage.
Yep. It's a direct reflection. And to your point, I always think of it like football. If you have to not only call a Hail Mary, but then have an onside kick right after to even have a
Yeah.
shot, you're not ready.
You know where it comes from, Devon, is like fighting movies. And you see people preparing for the big event, and
Hmm.
Rocky running the staircase and everything like that, and like in reality, oh no, you're tapering off training because you're
Yeah.
trying to get all your recovery in for that big event. But like when we watch movies and stuff, like, oh, I'm 10 weeks out, I'm gonna start digging now. It's like, no, you're 6 weeks too late. You should have been
Yeah.
digging a long time ago, buddy. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's all that is.
Very true. I love it. All right. Well, we got some great questions today. I'm excited for some of these. I don't know if we'll get through all of them, but there are a couple that we definitely want to get in. The first one, like I was telling you, had a great conversation, and this one kind of hits close to home.
Mhm.
Uh, so, women and gear, and why do people not discuss it more? And then there's a second part to that question of when should a woman look into HRT?
Mhm.
So I'll start. So women in gear, I think I think it's still taboo for
Mhm.
women to do anything that can biologically change them. I think that you have a smaller margin for error, not to say that you can't be safe and you still have ranges to work within. But women's hormones function so different than ours.
Mm.
I mean, you take a look at even like if you're doing TRT as a male, yes, it is ideal to break that shot up at a minimum into two times a week.
Mhm.
You could argue that you could get away with that once a week. It's not ideal. You're still going to see some peaks and troughs,
Mhm.
but the other hormones in our body aren't going to be as affected nearly as much as a woman, not only in what she's taking, but also to the frequency in which she's taking it. So there's a lot more
Mhm.
variables that need to be looked at. And I think that there's just not enough data as a whole to support a lot of the things that people are looking into. That's just my opinion. My wife was working really hard. Usually like she'll ask me for a meal plan and this and that, and I'll kind of just write it off because she'll end up doing her own thing. But about 4 months ago, she was like, "No, I'm dead serious. You write it out. I'll follow it." I was cooking all the food, so I knew exactly what she was eating. She was prepping it for what she needed, but I made sure she had it all available. Probably 2.5, 3 months go by. She's hitting the shop gym, and then running 3 to 4 times a week. Like everything is on par, and nothing is happening,
Mhm.
and she's starting to really get discouraged. And so I'm telling her, well, we don't always see changes in scale weight, but it doesn't mean that changes aren't happening. And yes, she was seeing some added performance benefits, clothes were changing, but in the back of my head, I'm also thinking like, damn, we should be seeing better progress.
Mhm.
I'm making adjustments. I got her into a pretty deep deficit just for a
Mhm.
little bit to see if we could get some things to move, and it still wasn't. And we had a talk, and I said, you might want to get blood work done. She said, well, I don't think there's anything wrong. And I said, well, I mean, all of the symptoms you're telling me lead me to believe that you're either potentially premenopausal or something is off. She had brain
Mhm.
fog, energy was constantly low. This was before we started pulling.
Thyroid, whatever. Mhm.
And so that's what I'm thinking, either thyroid. And I even told her, I said thyroid or potentially testosterone. I
Mhm.
don't think it could be that. So long story short, she goes to get it checked out. Testosterone was at 6.
Mhm.
Now, for a woman, I believe 15, 8. 8 is like bottom end.
Mhm.
6 is where she was at. And so she's talked to her doctor about potentially looking into TRT, and the doctor flat out said, like, we won't do it. We can raise your progesterone, which that was fine. We can offer you what was it? Something ridiculous. They wanted to offer some sort of pain medication to be able to sleep better.
Mhm.
No,
Mhm.
thank you. And so it's just one of those things where the doctor even told her like it's not researched enough for us to be able to safely recommend it. Now it's not to say you can't get it from a clinic, you can't do it on your own, but I think it's almost just started recently for men to be able to get prescribed TRT on a semi-regular
Mhm.
basis, and they still have trouble with that. So to do it for a woman, I think it's one of those things where they feel like there's too many unknowns. But I'll let you kind of give me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so your first point A was it just being taboo.
Yep.
And yeah, I can't agree with that anymore. Um, just like there, Devin, I don't know the percentage, but there's a good percentage of people out there that don't even know that women have testosterone in their body.
Yeah. Or
And
need it.
like I say that lightly, but like we would probably be surprised how many people don't actually even realize that.
Yeah. Well, and even
Um,
my wife, when she found out her testosterone was low, and I said we should probably look into HRT for you, she goes, "Well, I don't want to get a mustache or like deepen my voice." I'm
mhm,
like, "No, no, no, no,
mhm.
no. That's not HRT. That is super physiological doses that will
Yeah,
do that to you."
yeah,
But that's the
yeah,
stigma behind it.
yeah, exactly. Um, Part of me is happy that not as many people are talking about it, and
Hmm.
this is what I mean by that. Um, the advice that women get on PEDs, HRT, etc., is normally coming from men.
Yep. That
Um,
have only worked with men.
yep, and their idea of how to prescribe drugs to women is, well, I weigh this, I take this. You should probably take about half to a quarter. You'll be
Yep.
good. And
Yep.
here's the worst thing about a lot of men. I don't mean to generalize a whole group or gender, but a lot of men that I have come across don't even understand the menstrual cycle,
Yep.
like at all. Their understanding of the menstrual cycle is that women bleed once a month for a certain amount of days, and that's their extent of knowledge.
They get cravings and they get angry.
Yeah, and they're mad at me. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and they don't want to sleep with me. It's like, okay, cool. That's not even like remotely part of it.
Yeah.
It's like
There's
so.
phases to this, and within each phase, different
Yeah.
hormones are
Mhm.
increasing and decreasing.
Yeah, right? So, you know, real basic menstrual cycle, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. Those are the
Yep.
three main phases of the cycle. And like most men don't even know that. Well, I don't want to say most men, but a lot of the guys I've come across that are trying to prescribe their wives, girlfriends, etc., gear or HRT, they don't even understand the common menstrual cycle, right? So that is a huge red flag. So I'm
Mhm.
glad they're not publicly talking about it.
Yep.
Um, I've banned people from our Discord for asking, "Hey, how much Anavar should my wife take?" None. And then they go and ask again, and I ban them. Like, no,
Hmm.
stop it. There's I'll mention these girls real quick so I don't forget to mention them. Corey Fit, I can't think of her actual last name. She's on Instagram and she's all over the place. She's very smart when it comes to female hormones, and Victoria Felkar.
Yes.
So if anyone has questions about female hormones, those are the two girls that I have learned a ton from.
Hmm.
And obviously, there's good men coaches out there who understand, female performance enhancing and stuff like that. So that was your first point, is just the it being taboo. Your
Yep.
second point was what again? I'm sorry.
Second point was, when should a woman look into HRT?
Yeah, this is all going to be, in my opinion, based off blood work.
Yep.
And biological age may play into it. Um, have you had children? Do you want to have children? Those factors you might want to weigh in.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, just having a common understanding of how you're feeling or not feeling is going to be huge when it comes to anyone deciding to use hormone replacement therapy. And be honest with yourself on if you're doing everything else correctly first, right?
Yep.
So if you're eating like garbage and you feel like shit, this goes for men and women. That doesn't mean it's a hormone deficiency. It means it's a nutrient deficiency and a lack of discipline. That's a
Yeah.
whole nother thing, right? Um,
To your point, when we got the blood work back from my wife, everything else was in range. Everything, with the exception, I think it was either HDL or LDL, but we're talking one
mhm.
to two points outside of in range, so it wasn't like well above. But for the most part, everything was in range, with the exception of testosterone completely bottomed out. So
Yeah.
she wasn't deficient in any of, and they ran it for vitamin B, all of the majors. So there was nothing there, like you said, that could be contributing to a nutrient
Mhm.
deficiency or imbalance. Everything else across the board, all the other markers, good to go. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
definitely.
so so why aren't people talking about it? Some people are afraid to talk about it. Some people just aren't talking about it publicly, but they're still doing it behind the scenes. Um, some people deservingly should not be talking about it, and I'm glad they're not, because they own it that they don't know about it. And good, don't talk about it then. Don't put any females on drugs because you're
Mhm.
going to hurt someone, and you're going to permanently hurt a female.
And
Um,
some people flat out just don't even know that it's an option to them.
mhm,
They don't
mhm.
even know. They just, oh, A, I didn't even know that I needed testosterone, nor that I have it already. And B, I didn't even know that it's an option to be able to increase it.
Yeah, and as far as the I think some coaches in our industry are too quick to jump to anabolic and androgens and things like that when
Hmm.
females can get a lot out of a little clenbuterol, a little metformin, a little
Oh yeah.
retatrutide, a little L-carnitine, a little growth hormone, all these things, even a little insulin, all
Yeah.
these things that are potentially less dangerous for them and not causing irreversible damage if you do it wrong, right? um,
Hmm.
you know uh, the last person I'll mention is like Renee Jewett. I think she's open about
Oh
some
yeah.
stuff. She's obviously very intelligent when it comes to stuff like that because she has a lot of experience with it. So that's another one that women can look into. And don't get me wrong, like I said, there's a lot of male coaches out there who know what they're doing. Andrew Barry, Skip, those two know a
Yeah.
lot. Obviously, Scott McNally. He's
Hmm.
married to Victoria,
Yeah.
so that he learns a lot from her, I'm sure, and he has a lot of experience with females. Um, as far as performance enhancing and females, I don't have a ton of females that are enhanced. Um, it doesn't mean I don't know about it, but I personally don't have a ton of females that are enhanced. Most of my females are what I would call half natty, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or some of them are just full natty. So
Yeah.
that's where I am on the scale of that.
Same, same.
Hmm.
And I will never, and I'm sure, I can speak for both of us, will never recommend something that I don't know
Hell
the
no.
end result or how to effectively dose it
Hmm.
out. That's why when my wife and I were talking, the doctor said no. It was okay, well, let's find somebody that
Hmm.
can at least give us a rundown on what proper dosing would be on what, let's get information.
Yeah.
Now it's an information gathering point because I don't know, and I will never be somebody, whether it's a male or a female, to say take this at this amount, or do this at this without having a clear understanding of what the end result is going to be.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good.
The one that I was talking about is Corey Hagman. Her Instagram is Corey Fit.
Corey
Uh,
Fit. Yep.
yeah, I
I
don't know
just
if you
found
can
her.
see that, but yeah, she's even for you if you were trying to look into something like that's a person that I would contact.
Absolutely.
Next one is we talked about when should a woman look into HRT. You go ahead and pick the next one.
I'm just rolling down the line. I think the
Hmm.
next two kind of go hand in hand. So the first one is digestion. We talked a little bit about this last time, but we can cover it
Hmm.
real quick. Digestion tips during a growing phase. And so I assume we're talking about food is increasing. How do we keep digestion relatively well or high?
Yeah, a huge one that's missed too often is chew your food.
Yeah.
When
Chew. Yeah. What do they
when
say? Chew,
like
drink
ABCs or some shit.
drink your food and chew your water. So
Yeah, yeah,
chew your food to the point where it's liquefied and
yeah.
slowly like swish and drink your food or drink your water. Now, I will say that does cover. So your point, perfect, is chew your food, take your time eating. Do not rush through
Hmm.
eating your food. The other part of that is if you are drinking water, try not to drink your water directly with your meals. And I believe John Meadows was big on this too.
He was
um,
one of the first that I ever heard mention that.
yeah. And the
Yep.
reason being is the more water you drink while you are eating, the more you are diluting your gut microbiome. So think
Hmm.
of literally like a pool of acid in your stomach. And as you're eating, that acid is designed to clear and break up the food. Well, if you're drinking a ton of water while eating, that acid is becoming less and less and less effective, especially if that liquid of whatever it is you're drinking is
Hmm.
cold. It will actually slow digestion. So room
Exactly.
temperature or warm liquids with your food. If you're really getting to a point where food is really high, a little bit of ginger tea.
That's what I was gonna
Ginger
say.
helps aid in digestion. Pickled ginger with your meals.
Hmm.
Things that are fermented, kimchi, sauerkraut, all of those types of
Yep.
things with your meal, and you don't need much.
The
Um,
the the other thing to your point, with the stomach acid and water potentially diluting that, is taking gear. Most people don't know this, but taking gear can actually lower stomach acid in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
So I replace my stomach acid. I take Zypan or Betan HCl with every single meal. I use the Zypan one specifically. It's made by Standard Process. You can get it on Amazon. I take 2, even 3 with every single meal I eat.
Yep.
I don't get any indigestion anymore. Um, all that stuff. If you're burping up acid and shit like that, normally it's from a lack of stomach
I
acid.
was just going to say that, so I'm
Hmm.
glad that you mentioned that. Usually, when people are taking Tums and things like
Yeah.
that,
No,
they
no,
don't
no,
need to
no.
neutralize. They actually need
Right.
more stomach acid.
Yeah. 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 So adding, like I said, I use the Zypan, Zypan. You can find that on Amazon. 2 to 3 tabs with meals. Um, you can even increase that higher to the
Yeah,
point where you start to feel a little bit of warmth in your stomach, and then you know to back down. But yeah, I've taken as many as 3 with every single meal, and it completely eliminated any type of acid reflux, burping up the acid, all that stuff, completely gone. Um,
perfect. So there you go. Chew your
mhm,
food. Don't drink a lot of liquid, or really any, preferably drink it before and slightly after. Or if you
mhm.
are going to drink it, drink a warm liquid. Include fermented foods, and then also things like ginger, garlic. All of those will be your best friend.
And glutamine.
And
That's
glutamine.
that's an honorable mention. Glutamine.
Yes. Um,
Next one.
next one kind of rolls with it.
Oh yeah, I
Use of
forgot about this.
cannabis for appetite.
So I'll start with this one. This was a client that asked me, and he wasn't asking for himself. He was genuinely just curious. Um, if you already use cannabis, then yes. If it's something that is you're already using, and you want to use like a little bit more of it to try to ride out the potential appetite benefit or side effect, whatever you want to call it, yeah, for sure, that could help. If you don't use cannabis now, don't start using it just to try to increase your appetite. There's a million other things that you can use instead of that.
Yep.
So I would not pick up that habit if you're not already doing it. I'm not saying anything negative about it at all. I'm not for it or against it. If you're already using it, continue to use it. Maybe use different strains that make you feel more hungry, or different ways of consuming the cannabis that may increase your appetite. You could try out stuff like that. Sure, go for it. But like I said, if you're not using it now, I would never add it just for that effect.
Hmm. I couldn't agree. I can't add anything else to that. I would say the
Yeah.
exact same thing. Um, All right, we'll roll through two more real quick, because I know we're already coming up just past an hour, but these two kind of go side and side or hand in hand again. And I think we can answer them fairly quickly. So number one, along with digestion, and whatever we don't answer, we got a good amount. We'll answer on the next one. And then as always, if you guys have additional questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below or reach out to myself or Tommy, and get those questions in. But we seem to kind of be on the topic of digestion, so we'll stick with that. What are
Mhm.
the negative consequences of loading with food cooked outside your home, or that are more processed and lower quality than your normal diet? So you have a load day, you go outside of, your normal chicken and rice meal, maybe you want a burger and fries, you didn't make that, you went to go get it, you do sushi, you do whatever. What are the consequences of loading with some of those outside foods that you've noticed? I'll let you start because I,
Yeah,
I have a
they
good amount.
should be obvious, and there's plenty of negatives. Shitty cooking oils, heavy, heavy, heavy sodium. Um, and if you go to a sit down restaurant, the amount of time that you're spending on that meal, right?
Hmm.
You're having an appetizer, you're waiting, um, you're drinking your Diet Coke while you're waiting for your food. And then you get your food, you eat, you sit and talk, and then you're at a restaurant for an hour and a half. Well, you got to eat again in like an hour. So what are you going to do now? You're still all bloated from the restaurant, and you still have to eat another meal within an hour. Like, it's not happening unless it's one skip load meal and it's your last meal of the day. Every single food that we um, would eat at restaurants and things like that, we knew every single restaurant that didn't make us feel like shit. So we just had a list of go-tos, and you develop that list over time, and some of them
So
are
I
quite obvious, right?
I just had this conversation with somebody the other day too. They asked me, "How do you know what to eat?" It was almost this exact same question. It was, "How
Mm,
do you know what to eat so that you don't feel like shit the next day?" Now, that's the first indicator that whatever it was you were eating did not agree with your digestion. If you wake up the next day and you feel heavy, you feel bloated, you just feel lethargic, your food is still not properly digested. And I've had
mm.
plenty of post skip load days
Oh
where
yeah,
I woke up and went to go do cardio and I am poor. I mean, I've lost probably 5 to 6 pounds. I shit you not in water weight just from the inflammation, the amount of water retention. Everything feels tight, everything feels puffy. My stomach still feels full.
I
So
used to
that's
push cardio back a day
see, and
because
that's
I couldn't do cardio after the morning after a skip
See,
load.
and for me, I had to because I
Yeah.
hated that feeling.
Oh,
I would be
terrible.
in and out of the bathroom several times throughout.
Hmm.
Luckily, at my job, I work like across the hall from the bathroom, but
Hmm.
I mean, multiple trips. And like you said, you develop a list. So what I started doing was I never measure my loads, just like I tell my clients, you don't have to
Hmm.
measure your food, but keep a
Hmm.
general idea. If you go and have a burger and fries, double cheeseburger and fries, double cheeseburger and large fry with a Diet Coke. Cool. Then I'll write down 2 hours later how I felt.
Hmm.
And it's very simple. Seem to digest very well. Can use this again, or seem to sit around not quite as hungry for my next meal. And just little notes like that over time. I mean, I could go back shit probably 2, 3 years of skip loads that
Same.
I've had.
Yep.
Yeah, and you just keep track. And I at the end of each night, I would put how I felt, feel like I could continue to eat, or feel completely bloated, likely meal 3 or likely meal 4 was good
Hmm.
up until this. And it's
Yeah.
just little notes that are letting you. So that's the first thing I recommend. Um, the consequences are basically everything that we just listed off:
Hmm.
lethargic, bloating, stomach irritability, puffiness, water retention, inflammation,
Yeah.
and I mean, all of those things. So
And
find
with
out what
that,
works for you and
with,
stick with them.
yeah, and with that is blood pressure.
Yeah.
It's blood glucose. It's stress on the kidneys, the heart. Um, you're doing a number now. You're screwing up your lipids. You know how hard it is to recover your cholesterol numbers after a skip load of a bunch of junk.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead and get your blood work done a day or two after a nasty skip load that made you feel like shit. Tell me your blood work looks good. You can't.
Yeah.
You won't. You won't be able to.
Yep.
So yeah, that just like Devin said, collect data um, throughout the entire year. If you guys, specifically the guys that want to get on stage, guys and girls that want to get on stage, you need to collect data all year long on your own. Do it in your phone notes, build your own stuff, and then you can help your coach. Like, hey, we did X, Y, and Z, and I use this restaurant, and he's like, oh wow, this is awesome. Thank you for doing this. You just made my life really easy.
Here's a prime, real quick. Here's a
Mhm,
prime
mhm,
example. So I usually, leading up to last year, I worked with Skip year round, on
mhm.
and off. I worked with my
Same.
coach year round. When I didn't, I would do my check-ins on my phone notes the same way I would do them as if I were sending them to him. When I
Mhm.
had the conversation with my wife and she said, "Hey, I'm on board with you making this run for nationals." I remember calling Skip. We had a good conversation and he said, "Cool. The only other thing I need to know to be able to get your plan out is just kind of give me an overview of what you've been doing the last couple weeks." And I said,
Yeah.
"Ha, funny you should ask. I'm going to go ahead and just send you this." And it was literally check-ins over the last year
Yeah.
of every
Yeah.
Friday, the
Yep.
same as if I were checking in with him. And he
Yep.
goes, "Holy shit. All right. I'll have your plan to you in a day or two. And he did
Yep.
because he had all the information with
Mhm.
all the photos and everything he needed. So even if you're not working with a coach, and I was just telling somebody this the other day, do that for yourself
Yeah.
because then you have all the data you need.
And it doesn't take a lot of time, you know?
I copy
What
paste.
what
I copy last week's and then I paste
yeah.
it. I add the new photos and I just update the weight and whatever else has changed week to week. If nothing else has changed, I leave
Right.
that section.
Saturday, Sunday morning while
Yeah.
you're sitting on the toilet anyways on your
Yep.
phone, like, just do your check-in stuff real quick, it's
Yeah.
yeah,
One
it's
less game of Candy Crush on the toilet.
yeah, right on, right on.
All right,
Let's see, go ahead.
last one. And I think this goes alongside with the loading. Um, oh, what is okay? So I'm gonna add to this the original question, and this will be the last one. What is your favorite body part to train after a load day?
Mhm.
And what is your, I'm gonna say, what is your least favorite and why?
You go first, I'm curious of
Okay.
yours.
So my favorite to train after a load day is usually chest or back. I feel like I get I mean, just the bro in me, I get the largest pumps, shoulders pump up, everything. Like my whole upper body usually just inflates and looks crazy. Vascularity's off the chart. So usually I would just say anything upper body typically is my favorite. Throw in about 4 mgs of Cialis and
Mhm,
you have a pump that's unreal.
mhm,
Um, but
right.
uh, my least favorite is back, or no, sorry, not back, legs. And the reason
Mhm,
being is typically the amount of inflammation. My
yeah,
back will be very, very tight, and
yep,
almost every single time I have injured, and I say injured, that I've hurt myself and a lot of times it's a pulled QL strains and pulls and strains, so nothing detrimental, but it's always been after training legs on coming off a load day. And
yep.
usually it's because I'm doing like a push pull leg rotation and it just happens to fall the day after load day. And I'll never forget one that put me out for a while was I had pulled it was either SI or QL, and I was doing
Oh
my
god.
warm up set of rack pulls of 225. Now I normally pull on a top set somewhere between 485 and 505, somewhere in there, 4 to 5 plates. Um, Second set 225, and it was like the last rep. I went to pull it up, and my back just went zing,
Yep.
and I was done.
Yeah, mine are the same. I had a feeling they would be. Yeah, after a load, chest and back, legs, I need it 3 days away from a
Yep.
load. I don't need to be glycogen loaded to train legs. I just um no, 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 no. I feel like shit if I
Yeah.
train legs anywhere near loading anything. I don't want nothing to do with that. Um and as you get more depleted, it changes because, like, if you load on Sunday, Monday, you may not even be feeling the effects of the load yet. And then
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, all of a sudden, the load's hitting, and it's like,
Yep.
oh, okay, you can almost see it in your weight sometimes, depending on how depleted you are. Let's do one more because that one was easy.
All right.
Pick your favorite one.
All right. Here we go. I'm going to throw this one at you. We're going
Yep.
to go secret question of the week.
Okay.
We're going to
Cool.
bring that back. Here we go. Have you ever had one of your worst fears happen? And if not, what is one of your worst fears? This can be funny. This can be true. Whatever it is.
This is it's funny. I'm gonna go with the funny one because I'm not gonna get deep on this one because
Yeah.
this is too, it's too funny, and
And
it's
I'm gonna
like
laugh. I'm gonna laugh if it's similar to what mine is. Because I
it won't be, but you're going
okay.
to laugh because it's not like it's just silly because it's bodybuilding shit.
Oh, good.
Um,
Good, good.
I got gynecomastia surgery, right? I got that in November, and my biggest fear was to have the gyno come back, and I have a little reoccurrence
Oh no.
under my left nipple already, and like I can laugh about it now because like no one can really see it, so
Oh, okay.
like I'm kind of on the fence of if I'm gonna have the surgeon go back in there and remove it or not because it's really really not noticeable because it's right where my chest cups anyways,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
so like it contours in and you cannot really see the lump at all. So yeah, I had double gynecomastia removed, and that was the joke. Like, yeah, my biggest fear is just having it come back, and sure as shit, dude, within like 6 weeks, it started forming again. And so I
Oh,
I chose the funny one on that one. So let's hear yours.
I'm going this. All right, I'm going the same route. So, and I think this is one that most men will agree with me on, but it legit has always been a fear of mine that I am in the bathroom, either getting ready to get in the shower, regardless, I'm going to the bathroom naked, somebody breaks into my house. Like that is my
Mm,
biggest fear.
mhm,
Like
mhm.
having to
Yeah.
fight somebody just butt naked, either fresh in or fresh out of the shower.
Yep.
And it never happens when there's anybody home. It's always like when you're home by yourself, it's like 8 o'clock or something,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, then jump in the shower, and then you hear like the time it you
Oh, it's so funny, dude. That is so true though.
right?
There's certain points in a man's life where you're just incredibly vulnerable. And, one of them is being on the toilet, and the other one is being in or just getting out of the shower.
Right? Yeah,
It's
combination of
so
the two.
funny.
So that's
Yeah.
mine. I thought that'd be a fun one to end on.
Yeah, that was good.
Awesome. Well, that
Both
does
of
it for
us.
another episode of Beyond the Bar. I'm your host, Devon Grogans, your co-host, the Tommy John. Tommy, let them know how they can find you.
Yeah, Tommy John Coaching on Instagram, www.tommyjohncoaching.com. And in the Chase Irons Discord, I'm the
Which we
official
now
coach. Yeah, we
now
have the
have the
link.
link in the
Yeah.
comment section. So check
Yep.
that out.
Yeah, you guys can find the Chase Irons Discord link down below. I do a lot of coaching out of there. Primarily, most of my coaching happens out of there. I answer a lot of questions for people who aren't my clients. We have 800 members in there now, so um, lots of members in there, lots of knowledge in there. Um, you know, things, places to get stuff for bodybuilding and everything like that. So, lots of good stuff in there. How about you,
Perfect.
Devin?
Yeah, dgrow39 on Instagram. You can email me at devin at nextlevel-training.com, or you can find me at Next Level Physiques, which is nxtlevel-training.com. Something I haven't plugged that
Mhm.
I don't know most people know about, but I actually own a supplement company. You can find that at www.getgforce.net. For all the competitors out there, and Tommy, I'll have to send you some. One of my
Mhm.
favorite, and these are all supplements that I have formulated myself. So these are not proprietary blends. These are not go online and find what looks closest to be a good pre-workout. I've had a hand in every single one of these. I have a neurosurge um, nootropic that I selected, very low caffeine, just enough to make the L-theanine and the lion's mane and some of the other ingredients really work, as they
Mhm.
require a little bit of caffeine. So it's not heavily caffeine driven, but it's great for the people that are deep in prep that just need that extra focus because you're running on fumes when it comes to carbs and you got that low
Yep.
carb brain. But I call it legal Adderall. It's great for in the gym, helps with the mind muscle connection. So check it out, getgforce.net. I'll put it in the link below, but that's something that
Perfect.
I definitely wanted to touch on. So appreciate your time today, and I will catch you guys later.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, take care.